Steam poured out as the pod door opened. Jiho and Suji stepped back, waiting. Through the mist, a figure stumbled forward and collapsed onto the floor. It was a woman. A human woman. She lay there gasping for air, her whole body shaking. Her skin was pale, almost blue. She wore a strange uniform that Jiho didn't recognize. It was old-fashioned, made of thick material with patches on the shoulders. The patches showed a flag. The Korean flag, but the design was slightly different from the current one. Suji dropped to her knees beside the woman. "Help me," she said to Jiho. "We need to keep her warm." Jiho pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around the woman's shoulders. Her eyes were open but unfocused. She was trying to speak, but the words came out wrong. Not Korean, not English. Something else entirely. "It's the stasis effects," Suji said. "Her brain needs time to reconnect everything. It can take a few minutes after long-term suspension." They helped the woman sit up. She leaned against the pod, breathing hard. Slowly, her eyes began to focus. She looked at Jiho, then at Suji, then around at the massive chamber. Her expression shifted from confusion to fear. She said something in that strange language. When neither of them responded, she tried again. This time, Jiho caught a few words. They were Korean, but very old Korean, the kind his grandmother might have spoken. "She's speaking old dialect," he said, "from maybe 100 years ago or more." Suji pulled out a small device from her bag. "Translation matrix," she explained. "It should help." She pressed it against the woman's temple. The device beeped and began glowing softly. "Can you understand me now?" Suji asked slowly. The woman blinked. Then she nodded. "Yes, I can understand." "Where am I? What happened? Where's my crew?" Her voice was rough from not being used. She coughed and tried again. "How long have I been asleep?" Jiho and Suji looked at each other. Neither wanted to answer. "Please," the woman said. "I need to know." "We were on a mission. The Teguk. Earth sent us to explore. We found this place, found the aliens. They were dying. They said they could help us, teach us, but something went wrong. They put us in these machines." "How long ago was that?" Suji took a deep breath. "What year did you leave Earth?" 2142, the woman said. "March 2142. We launched from the Jeju base." Suji's face went white. "Oh no. What?" The woman grabbed Suji's arm. "What year is it now?" 27, Jiho said quietly. "You've been asleep for 145 years. The woman stared at him. For a long moment she didn't move, didn't breathe. Then she made a sound like she'd been hit. Her hands began shaking. Tears ran down her face. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not possible. Everyone I knew, my family, my friends, they're all gone," Suji finished softly. "I'm sorry." The woman put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Jiho felt something twist in his chest. He knew that feeling. The feeling of losing everything. Of having your whole world disappear and being left alone with nothing but pain. He knelt down beside her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She looked up at him with red eyes. "Hyun, Commander Hyun. I was the mission leader. I'm Jiho. This is Dr. Suji. You're safe now." Hyun laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Safe? I'm 145 years out of time. Everyone I loved is dead. How is that safe?" She had a point. Jiho didn't have a good answer. They helped Hyun to her feet. She was weak but could stand. They moved slowly back to the elevator, then up to the living quarters. Jiho gave Hyun his bed and made her tea. She sat wrapped in blankets, staring at nothing. Suji was at the desk, frantically typing on her datapad. "This changes everything," she muttered. "Humans discovered the Velthir in 2142, but our history books say first contact wasn't until 2187. That's 45 years of missing history." "Maybe the government kept it secret?" Jiho suggested. "For 45 years?" Suji shook her head. "That doesn't make sense," Hyun spoke up suddenly. "They needed us." Both Jiho and Suji turned to look at her. "The Velthir," Hyun continued. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "They were dying. Not just old age. Something was wrong with them. Their DNA was breaking down. They said their whole species was sick. They were desperate. They wanted your help?" Suji asked. "They wanted our DNA," Hyun said. "Human DNA. They thought they could use it to fix themselves. We volunteered. My whole crew. We thought we were saving them. They put us in those pods so they could study us, take samples, learn how to repair their own genetics. But they never woke you up, Jiho said. No, they must have failed, or run out of time. Hyun looked at them. Are they really all gone? The Velthir? We've never found a living one, Suji answered. Just their buildings and technology. They disappeared about 800 years ago. Nobody knows why. 800 years, Hyun repeated. So they were already gone for centuries before they took us. That means, she stopped, her eyes widening. The date. When we met them, they told us it was year 2142. But if they've been gone for 800 years and this is 2287, then... Suji finished the calculation quickly. They disappeared around the year 1487, 500 years before you met them. That's impossible, Hyun said. I talked to them. I saw them. They were alive. The pods, Jiho said suddenly. What if the Velthir you met were also in stasis? What if they woke up specifically to meet your ship? Suji's eyes lit up. That makes sense. They set up this outpost as an archive. When sensors detected your ship approaching, the system automatically revived some Velthir. They met with you, tried to get what they needed, then went back into stasis. They knew they were the last ones. But why keep us asleep all this time? Hyun asked. If they failed to cure themselves, why not just let us go? Maybe they couldn't, Suji said. Maybe the last Velthir died before they could wake you. You were just left here forgotten while humanity moved on without you. Hyun's face crumpled again. We were supposed to be heroes. First contact with aliens. We were supposed to come home and tell everyone what we found. You still can, Jiho said. You can tell us now. You can tell the world what really happened. But Hyun shook her head. They won't care. It's ancient history to everyone but me. My mission, my crew, my life, it's all just a footnote now. They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, asteroids continued their slow dance through space, uncaring about human tragedy. Finally, Suji spoke. There's something else we need to consider. If the Velthir were desperate enough to experiment with human DNA, they must have left records. Data about what they were trying to do. The answer to why they died. Why does that matter? Hyun asked. Because, Suji said carefully, they gave humanity the quantum gate technology. That's in the history books. In 2187, we found abandoned Velthir gates and figured out how to use them. That's how we expanded into space so quickly. But what if that wasn't an accident? What if they left us the gates on purpose? A gift? Jiho asked. Or a warning, Suji replied. They spent the next 2 days in the lower chamber, searching through the Velthir database. Hyun grew stronger each day. Her body remembered how to work. Her mind began to accept her new reality. But Jiho could see the pain behind her eyes. The weight of being alone in time. He understood that feeling. He was trying to hide from his past. She was trapped in hers. Different problems, same loneliness. Suji worked frantically translating Velthir records. She found files about the DNA experiments, about the sickness that killed the Velthir, about their final desperate attempts to survive. But she also found something else. Something that made her very quiet. Look at this, she said on the third morning. She showed them a Velthir star map. These are quantum gates. The Velthir built them all over this part of the galaxy. We know that, Jiho said. We use them now. That's how humans travel between stars. Right, but look at this. Suji highlighted certain symbols on the map. These markings. They appear on every gate. The Velthir database calls them tracking signatures. Tracking? Hyun leaned closer. You mean the gates can be tracked? Not tracked, Suji said. They broadcast. Every quantum gate sends out a specific signal into deep space. The Velthir designed them that way on purpose, but why? Jiho asked. Suji pulled up another file. Because they weren't the first. The quantum gate technology isn't Velthir. They found it. Got it from someone else. And whoever gave it to them included those tracking signatures. A cold feeling spread through Jiho's chest. Who gave it to them? The file doesn't say, but the Velthir scientists called them the Harvesters. Before anyone could ask more questions, an alarm blared throughout the station. Red lights began flashing. Jiho ran to a control panel. Ships incoming, he said, reading the display. 3 vessels. Military design. They're hailing us. Don't answer yet, Suji said quickly. Let me check something. She typed rapidly on her data pad. Oh no. What? The stasis pod. When it opened, it sent an automatic signal to the company. Standard protocol for any major system activation. They know something happened down here. The comm system crackled to life without Jiho accepting the call. Someone had overridden his controls. Taros Outpost, this is Director Minho of the DN Mining Consortium. We are coming aboard. Do not resist. They can't just board, Hyun said. This is still a registered station. They need permission. Company owns the station, Jiho replied grimly. They can do what they want. Within 20 minutes, armed security teams were inside. They moved through the corridors in tight formation, weapons ready. Their leader was a tall man in an expensive suit, Director Minho. Behind him walked another man in tactical gear. His name tag read Taeyang. Minho smiled when he saw them, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Well, this is interesting. We detected a stasis revival signal and thought maybe our maintenance worker had accidentally woken up some Veltir artifacts. But this is much better. His eyes fixed on Hyun. A human. From the old expedition, I'm guessing. Do you have any idea how valuable you are? Living tissue from before the genetic modifications. Before the quantum radiation exposure. You're a pristine sample. I'm not a sample, Hyun said coldly. I'm a person. That's debatable, Minho replied. Legally, you were part of a government experiment. Property of Earth's old exploration program. That program was dissolved and its assets sold. My company bought those assets. Which means technically we own you. Jiho stepped between them. That's insane. You can't own a person. Take it up with the courts, Minho said. He gestured to his security team. Taeyang, secure the subject. Bring her to the ship. Taeyang moved forward, but he looked uncomfortable. Sir, are you sure about the legal? I'm sure. Do your job. But Suji spoke up quickly. Actually, you can't. She's part of an active archaeological site. Under interstellar law, any human remains or living specimens found in alien structures fall under university jurisdiction until proper research can be completed. I have legal authority here, not you. Minho's smile disappeared. You're really going to quote law at me? I'm going to enforce it, Suji said. She held up her credentials. Dr. Suji, Xenoarchaeology Department, Seoul University. This entire lower level is now a protected site. You can't remove anything without proper documentation and review. For a moment, Minho looked like he might argue. Then he laughed. Fine, have your paperwork and your review process. But I'm not leaving this station. We'll all stay right here until the courts sort it out. That could take months. We have supplies for months, Jiho said. Good. Minho settled into a chair. My team will secure the lower levels, just to make sure nothing else gets accidentally activated. Taeyang led the security team toward the elevator. Jiho watched them go, helpless. He wanted to fight, but what could he do against armed soldiers? They spent an uncomfortable day with Minho's people all over the station. The security team set up equipment in the lower chamber. They ran scans and took samples. Minho stayed in the control room, making calls to company headquarters. That evening, Jiho found Taeyang alone in the corridor. The security officer was examining one of the Veltir wall carvings. You don't agree with what Minho is doing, Jiho said. It wasn't a question. Taeyang didn't look at him. I follow orders, even when they're wrong. I was military before this. Corps of Engineers. I learned to trust the chain of command. I was military too, Jiho said quietly. I learned that sometimes the chain of command makes mistakes. Sometimes you have to think for yourself. Taeyang finally looked at him. What happened to you? Ceres Station. 3 years ago. I was in charge of the reactor maintenance. I followed orders. Didn't question them even when something felt wrong. 37 people died when the reactor exploded. That wasn't your fault. The investigation cleared you, I know, but I still see their faces every night. Jiho moved closer. You seem like a good person. Don't let Minho turn you into someone who helps him do the wrong thing. Don't end up like me. Before Taeyang could respond, alarms blared again. Different ones this time. Not intruders. System alerts. They ran to the control room. Suji was already there, staring at a display screen. Her face was pale. What is it? Jiho asked. I kept digging through the Veltir files, she said. I found the rest of the story about the harvesters. She pulled up images on the screen. They showed things that made Jiho's blood run cold. Massive ships. Dead worlds. Entire civilizations gone. The harvesters travel between galaxies, Suji explained. They follow the quantum gate signals. When they find a species using the gates, they come and they take everything. All the resources, all the technology, all the life. They harvest entire worlds. That's why the Veltir died, Hyun said softly. Not disease. They were harvested, No, Suji corrected. The Velthir knew the harvesters were coming. They shut down their civilization on purpose, went into hiding, tried to make themselves invisible. But it was too late. The harvesters had already found them. Minho had entered the room during the explanation. So what, this happened 800 years ago. If these harvesters exist, they're long gone. The harvesters move slowly, Suji said. They travel between galaxies over thousands of years. But once they detect a gate signal, they come. Always. And we've been using the gates for 100 years, Jiho said. Broadcasting our location the entire time. They're probably already on their way, Suji finished. The room went silent. Through the window, stars burned peacefully. But somewhere out there in the dark, something was coming. Something that had killed the Velthir. Something that would kill humanity, too. We need to warn Earth, Hyun said. And tell them what? Minho demanded. To stop using the gates? Our entire economy depends on them. Every colony, every trade route. You're talking about destroying civilization based on ancient alien data that might not even be accurate. It's accurate, Suji said. The Velthir wouldn't have killed themselves for nothing. Then what do we do? Taeyang asked. For the first time, his military discipline cracked. He sounded scared. Jiho was already thinking like an engineer. We need to find the Velthir solution. If they knew about this problem, they must have tried to fix it. There has to be more information down there. They worked through the night, all of them together now. Even Minho helped, though he kept arguing that they should just destroy the data and pretend they never found it. But Taeyang stood with Jiho. The security team followed their officer's lead. Suji finally found what they were looking for deep in the Velthir archives. A file marked Final Protocol. They had a plan, she said, her voice shaking with exhaustion and excitement. The Velthir engineers designed a way to modify the quantum gates, remove the tracking signatures while keeping the gates functional. Then why didn't they do it? Hyun asked. They ran out of time. The harvesters arrived before they could implement the modifications. The Velthir hid the solution here, hoping another species would find it. Would have the chance they didn't. Jiho studied the technical data. His engineer's mind absorbed the information, seeing how it would work. It's brilliant, but complicated. We'd need to access every quantum gate simultaneously. Send the modification code through the entire network at once. How many gates? Taeyang asked. 216, Suji answered, spread across 47 human colonies. Impossible, Minho said. We don't have access to all of them. And even if we did, the timing would have to be perfect. One mistake and we could crash the entire gate network, strand millions of people, destroy interstellar commerce. Or we do nothing and the harvesters kill everyone, Hyun said sharply. Those are the choices. They argued for hours. Minho wanted to send the data to Earth and let the government decide. Suji thought they should go public, let everyone know the danger. Taeyang suggested destroying all the gates, cutting humanity off from space travel completely. But Jiho kept studying the Velthir files. There had to be a way. The Velthir were brilliant engineers. If they designed a solution, it would work. He just had to understand it. Finally, as dawn light began creeping through the windows, he found it. The Outpost, he said suddenly. This station. It's not just an archive. It's the control node. Everyone turned to look at him. The Velthir built this place at the center of the gate network, Jiho continued, excitement growing in his voice. From here we can access every gate. We can send the modifications simultaneously. The system is already designed for it. We just have to activate it. Where? Suji asked. Jiho pulled up the schematics. Deeper down. Below the stasis chamber. There's another level, the core. They found the elevator to the core hidden behind a panel in the stasis chamber. It took them down into the heart of the asteroid. The walls here were different. Living crystal that pulsed with light. Velthir biotechnology at its finest. The core room was small and circular. In the center stood a pillar of crystal, glowing with soft blue light. Hundreds of cables ran from it to the walls, floor, and ceiling. Information flowed through them like blood through veins. This is it, Suji whispered. The control center for the entire quantum gate network. Jiho approached the pillar carefully. When his hand touched it, the crystal responded. Information flooded into his mind. Not words, pure knowledge. He gasped and pulled back. I can see it, he said. All the gates. Every connection. The whole network. It's beautiful. Can you do it? Hyun asked. Can you send the modification? Jiho studied the pillar more carefully. He touched it again, letting the information flow. This time he was ready for it. His engineer's training helped him understand what he was seeing. The quantum mathematics, the energy patterns, the modification code. Then he saw the problem. Someone has to stay here, he said quietly, to activate the sequence. The crystal requires a biological interface, a living mind to control it, and once it starts, the energy discharge will be massive. Whoever activates it won't survive. Silence filled the room. How long? Taiyang asked. The modification will take about 3 minutes to propagate through the network. The person would have to maintain the connection that entire time. Keep the system stable. Make sure every gate receives the code properly. And then the crystal will overload. The energy has to go somewhere. It will go into whoever is touching it. More silence. Jiho looked around at the faces watching him. Yun, who had already lost everything. Suji, who had her whole career ahead of her. Taeyang, who had a family waiting somewhere. Even Minho, who for all his faults was still a person with a life. Jiho had come here to disappear. To hide from his failures, to run away from the guilt of Ceres Station. He had wanted to be alone, to avoid responsibility, to never make another mistake that cost lives. But here was a different choice. Not running away, running toward something, one final act that would matter. That would save billions of people who would never know his name. I'll do it, he said. No. Hyun stepped forward. I should. Everyone I loved is gone. I have no place in this time. Let me do something that matters. You have plenty of life left to live, Jiho said gently. You can learn about this new world. Find new people to care about. You deserve that chance. So do you, Suji said. Her eyes were wet with tears. Jiho, you don't have to be a hero. We can find another way. There is no other way. Jiho looked at the crystal pillar. This is what I'm good at, engineering, fixing things. I failed once and people died. I won't fail this time. He walked to the pillar before anyone could stop him. Placed both hands on its surface. The connection opened immediately. Information rushed in. He could feel the quantum gates. All of them. Across dozens of star systems. Millions of people using them every day, unaware of the danger. Everyone needs to leave, he said. His voice sounded distant even to himself. The station will be destroyed. Get to the ships, Jiho, Suji started. Go, please, you need to tell people what happened here. Tell them about the Velthir, about the harvesters. Make sure everyone knows, he looked at Hyun. And take care of her. She's lost enough. Taeyang grabbed Minho and pulled him toward the elevator. Suji took Hyun's arm. The older woman was crying, but she let herself be led away. At the elevator, she looked back one more time. Thank you, she said, for giving us all a second chance. Jiho smiled. Thank you for reminding me what matters. The elevator doors closed. He was alone. Jiho took a deep breath and dove into the connection fully. His mind spread across the quantum network. He found the modification code in the Velthir database and began sending it. Gate by gate, system by system. The code spread like light through darkness. The crystal grew hot under his hands. He felt pain beginning but pushed it aside. Just 3 minutes. He could do anything for 3 minutes. He thought about Ceres Station, about the faces of the people he'd failed to save. But this time it would be different. This time he would succeed. 2 minutes. The gates were changing. The tracking signatures dissolving. Humanity disappearing from the harvester's sight. Pain filled his whole body now. The crystal was burning. But he held on. Just a little longer, 1 minute. Almost there. Most of the gates had been modified. Just the last few. He could feel the energy building in the crystal. Building in him, too much. Too much. 30 seconds. The last gate received the code. The modification was complete. Humanity was safe. Jiho let out his breath. He thought about the asteroid field outside. About the quiet peace he'd found here. He'd come looking for isolation and found purpose instead. Not a bad ending. The energy released all at once. For a moment, Jiho felt everything. Every gate. Every person. Every star. The whole beautiful universe connected in one perfect instant. Then light. Then nothing. Far above, in the ships racing away from the station, they saw the explosion. The asteroid bloomed into a brief new star, then went dark. The outpost was gone. The archive was gone. Jiho was gone. But across human space, every quantum gate flickered for just a moment. then continued working, silent and invisible, carrying humanity into the future. And in the deep dark between galaxies, something vast changed course. The signal it had been following for 100 years had vanished. After searching and finding nothing, it turned away. There were other galaxies, other signals, other prey. Humanity would never know how close they came, never know what Jiho sacrificed. But they lived, and that was enough. Jiho stepped out of the elevator into complete darkness. His flashlight cut through the black like a knife. The air down here was colder than upstairs. His breath made small clouds in front of his face. The walls looked different too. They had strange patterns carved into them, spiraling and twisting in ways that hurt his eyes if he looked too long. He checked his data pad. According to the map, there should be a corridor ahead leading to the old research labs, but when he shined his light forward, he saw a metal door blocking the way. It was covered in warning symbols. Some were human warnings added later, sealed, do not enter, authorized personnel only. But underneath those, he could see older Velthir symbols carved into the metal itself. His datapad translated the alien writing: archive, final, preserve. Jiho touched the door. It was cold under his fingers. Ice had formed around the edges where moisture had frozen. This door hadn't been opened in a very long time, but somewhere beyond it something was using power. He could hear a faint humming sound like machinery running far away. He examined the lock. It was electronic, connected to the station's main systems. With his engineering access codes, he could override it. The company might get angry if they found out, but they were 47 light-years away. They'd never know unless he told them. Jiho entered his codes. The lock beeped once, twice, then clicked open. Air rushed out as the seal broke, making a sound like a sigh. The door slid sideways into the wall. Beyond it, lights flickered on automatically, sensing his presence. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. The corridor ahead was enormous. The ceiling was so high his flashlight couldn't reach it. The walls stretched away into the distance, much farther than the station maps showed. This space shouldn't exist. According to the schematics, the lower level was small, just a few labs and storage rooms. But this was massive. Jiho walked forward slowly. His footsteps echoed in the huge space. The lights continued turning on as he moved, section by section, revealing more of the impossible corridor. After 50 meters, the corridor opened into a chamber so large it could have held a spaceship, and it was filled with pods, hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They stood in perfect rows, stretching away in all directions. Each pod was tall and cylindrical, made of the same smooth material the Velthir used for everything. Most were dark and empty, but here and there, scattered throughout the massive room, a few pods glowed with soft blue light. Jiho's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't supposed to be here. Nobody had told him about this. The company had said the lower level was just old labs, abandoned and empty. But this was something else entirely. This was a secret. He walked between the rows of pods, his flashlight beam dancing across their surfaces. The dark ones were empty inside. He could see through the transparent front panels. Nothing but dust and shadows. But the glowing ones were different. The blue light came from inside them, and their panels were frosted over. He couldn't see what was inside. One pod was very close to where he stood. Its blue light pulsed gently, like breathing. Jiho approached it carefully. The surface was covered in frost, but when he wiped it away with his glove, he could see something inside. A shape. Something the size of a person. Before he could look closer, he heard a sound behind him. Footsteps. Fast ones. Jiho spun around, his flashlight swinging. A figure stood at the entrance to the chamber, silhouetted against the corridor lights. A woman. She was breathing hard like she'd been running. "Stop," she shouted. "Don't touch anything." Jiho raised his hands, showing he wasn't armed. "Who are you? How did you get on this station?" The woman walked forward into the light. She was young, maybe late 20s, with short black hair and glasses. She wore casual clothes, not a uniform. A large bag hung from her shoulders, stuffed with equipment. "I'm Suji," she said, still breathing hard. "Dr. Suji, I'm a xenoarchaeologist. I have clearance to be here." "Nobody told me anyone else was coming," Jiho said. His voice came out harder than he intended. He'd come here to be alone. That was the whole point. "Nobody told you because it's classified research," Suji said. She pulled out a data pad and showed him her credentials. They looked official. I'm here to study the Velthir artifacts. The company doesn't advertise it because they don't want competition from other research teams. Jiho lowered his hands but didn't relax. You should have told me you were coming. I could have shot you. You don't have a gun, Suji pointed out. You don't know that. They stared at each other for a moment. Then Suji's expression changed. She looked past him at the glowing pod and her eyes went wide. You found them, she whispered. The archive. Oh my God, you actually found them. She pushed past Jiho and ran to the pod. Her hands moved over its surface, touching panels and reading displays he hadn't noticed. Her fingers were shaking with excitement. Do you know what this is? She asked, not looking at him. Do you have any idea what you've discovered? Stasis pods, Jiho said. Velthir technology. For preserving biological samples or not just samples, Suji interrupted. She tapped a display panel, and information began scrolling across it. These are people. Living people. The Velthir put them in stasis before they disappeared. This pod is still active. Whatever's inside is still alive after all these centuries. Jiho felt his blood go cold. What do you mean, people? Velthir people? Suji shook her head, her eyes scanning the data. I don't think so. The biological readings are wrong for Velthir. The size is wrong too. This is something else, something they preserved for a reason. She touched another panel. The pod made a soft beeping sound. Then it made a louder sound like gears starting to turn. Lights began flashing along its surface in sequence top to bottom. What did you do? Jiho asked, alarm rising in his voice. Suji stepped back from the pod, her face pale. I didn't do anything. I just accessed the control panel to read the data. I didn't activate anything, but the pod didn't stop. The lights flashed faster. The beeping became a steady tone. The frost on the surface began to melt, water running down in streams. Inside, the blue light grew brighter. It's an automatic sequence, Suji said, her voice barely a whisper. The pod was programmed to begin revival when someone accessed the controls. We triggered it just by looking. Jiho moved closer to the pod. Through the clearing panel, he could now see the shape inside more clearly. It was definitely human-sized and human-shaped. Arms, legs, a head. But that was impossible. The Velthir had disappeared hundreds of years before humans ever left Earth. There couldn't be a human in one of their pods. We need to stop it, Jiho said. We don't know what's in there. We can't stop it, Suji replied. These pods are designed to complete their cycles once started. If we interrupt it now, whatever's inside will die. The tone from the pod changed to a high, clear note. Then it stopped. The lights went out. For a long moment, everything was silent. Jiho could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Then, with a hiss of releasing pressure, the pod door began to open. The shuttle engines hummed as they slowed down. Jiho pressed his face against the small window and looked outside. The Taro's outpost floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal egg. It was built into an asteroid, gray and old, with lights blinking here and there across its surface. This would be his home now. His home and his escape. We'll be docking in 5 minutes, the pilot said through the speakers. You sure you want to stay here alone? It's a long way from anywhere. Jiho nodded even though the pilot couldn't see him. I'm sure. He had only one bag with him. Everything he owned fit inside it. His old military uniform was gone. His medals were gone. His old life was gone. That's exactly what he wanted. The outpost needed a maintenance worker and he needed to disappear. It was perfect. The shuttle connected to the docking port with a soft bump. Jiho grabbed his bag and walked to the door. When it opened, cold air rushed in. It smelled like metal and dust. The pilot handed him a datapad. Contracts loaded on there. Company will send supplies every 3 months. Emergency beacons in the control room if you need help. Good luck, friend. Jiho took the pad and stepped into the airlock. Behind him, the shuttle door closed. A moment later, he heard the engine start up again. The shuttle was leaving. He was alone now. The airlock opened into a large corridor. The walls were smooth and curved in strange ways. This place wasn't built by humans. The Velthir had made it hundreds of years ago before they disappeared. Nobody knew where they went or why they left. Their buildings were all over this part of space, empty and waiting. Jiho's boots made soft sounds on the floor as he walked. Emergency lights glowed along the walls, casting blue shadows everywhere. The corridor stretched ahead of him, turning and bending like the inside of a giant shell. He passed doors marked with Velthir symbols. He couldn't read them, but his datapad translated storage, water processing, Power junction. After 10 minutes of walking, he found the living quarters. The door opened when he touched the panel beside it. Inside was a simple room with a bed, a desk, a small kitchen area, and a bathroom. But the far wall was made entirely of clear material. Through it, he could see space. Asteroids drifted past, tumbling slowly. Stars burned in the distance. It was beautiful and empty. Jiho dropped his bag on the bed and stood at the window for a long time. Out there, nobody could find him. Nobody could ask him questions about what happened on Ceres Station. Nobody could look at him with pity or anger or disappointment. He took a deep breath and felt something loosen in his chest. Maybe here, finally, he could forget. He spent the first day exploring the outpost and learning the systems. The Velter had built everything to last. Most of the technology still worked perfectly, even after all these years. The mining drones went out every morning automatically, collecting rare minerals from the asteroid belt. They returned at night and deposited their cargo in the storage bays. Jiho's job was simple: make sure everything kept working. Fix what broke. Keep the place running. It was easy work. Too easy, maybe. But that's what he wanted. No people, no pressure. No chances to fail again. On the second day, he mapped out the entire outpost. It was bigger than he expected. The main level had the living quarters, control room, and storage areas. Below that was the processing level where the drones were maintained. The lowest level, according to his map, was sealed off. Old research labs, probably. The company told him not to bother with it. Everything important was on the upper levels. Jiho was fine with that. Less work for him. The third night, he couldn't sleep. He lay in bed watching asteroids drift past his window. His mind kept going back to Ceres Station, to the faces of the crew, to the explosion, to his mistake. He closed his eyes, but that made it worse. He could see it all more clearly in the darkness. Finally, he got up and went to the control room. Maybe work would help. He sat at the main console and pulled up the system reports. Everything looked normal. Power levels steady. Life support working fine. Mining drones recharging. He was about to shut it down and try to sleep again when something caught his eye. The power distribution graph showed a small drain on the lowest level. It wasn't much, just a tiny line on the chart. But according to the official maps, that level was sealed and unpowered. Nothing down there should be using electricity. Jiho leaned closer to the screen. He pulled up more detailed readings. The power drain was constant, steady, like something was running down there. A computer, maybe, or life support. But that didn't make sense. The company had told him the lower level was abandoned decades ago. Everything was shut down. He checked the schematics. The power lines running to the lower level were supposed to be disconnected. But the readings clearly showed energy flowing down there. Someone had either missed something or the maps were wrong. Jiho sat back in his chair. He should probably report this. Send a message to the company and let them handle it. That was the safe thing to do. The smart thing, but he was curious. And he was an engineer. His whole life, he'd been good at figuring out how things worked. Even after everything that happened, he still had that instinct. He wanted to know what was down there using power. Besides, he told himself it was his job to maintain the outpost. If something was running that shouldn't be, he needed to check it out. The company paid him to keep things working properly. He was just doing his job. He looked at the time. 3 a.m, station time. He had nothing else to do. No meetings. No schedule. No reason not to investigate right now. Jiho stood up and stretched. He grabbed a flashlight and his toolkit from the storage locker. The lower level was probably just full of old equipment. Maybe an automated system was still running, something the company forgot about. He'd take a look, figure out what it was, and shut it down if necessary. Simple. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button for the lowest level. The doors closed and the elevator began to move down. As it descended, Jiho noticed his hands were shaking slightly. He told himself it was just cold. The lower levels were probably not heated very well, but deep down he knew it was something else. It was the same feeling he'd had right before everything went wrong on Ceres Station, the feeling that something wasn't right, that he was about to discover something he wasn't ready for. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. Beyond them was only darkness.